Hi JJ, welcome to Prime Podcast. I watched a lot of your content. It may not look like it, but I'm hoping that you can teach us how to get strong. Can we talk about muscle loss to begin with? Because I find I need to do so much more now just to have the definition in my arms and my body. 47. Is it going to get worse? What can I do?
It's going to get worse if you think so.
Okay.
How about that? So there's a great study that came out that said that people who are excited about aging have a positive attitude about aging live 7.5 years longer than people who don't. Right? I mean, the minute I heard that, I went, well, this is easy. I'm going to get fired up about this. And I truly believe, this whole idea we're in our prime in our 20s to 40s. No, we're not. We are confused. Things are hard. We've got kids. We've got that is the hardest part of life.
Yeah.
If I had known, if I could have just gone the little jump from 20 to 50, but keep somehow acquired the wisdom.
Yes.
I would have done that in a heartbeat. It's like everything is awesome starting at 50. So first of all, get fired up because that's about what's happening for you. You have to have the right strategies. What you did in your 20s and 30s does not get you where you want to be in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond.
So stop looking to our past completely.
Yeah, don't would you use the same skincare you used in your teens or 20s? No. Would you dress like you did in your 20s?
No.
Would you have the haircut you had in your 20s? Likely not.
So we need to get excited about this new chapter.
Get fired up, but then do the right things.
Okay.
Right? And it's harder, but it doesn't have to be. Like the statistics, I believe, really are the statistics of a sedentary human. Mm-hmm. So that whole thing of starting around the age 30, we lose 3-8% of our muscle mass each decade. It's actually, that's not the bad part. The bad part is we're losing twice as much strength and 3 times as much of our power. Strength is how much you can lift one thing, like really heavy, the heaviest thing you can lift once, and power is how fast can you do it. And those are really bigger issue. And then we also lose anywhere from 5 to 15% of our VO2 max each decade. And that's really our engine. Like, how do we take that oxygen in? How do we get it into our blood? How do we use it to create energy? So these are the things we have to focus on. So we just have to be way more deliberate. In your 20s, you could kind of go on a diet or do a little exercise and all of a sudden things were great. Not so much now. Yeah. You need to be consistent and deliberate and do the right things.
A lot of women tell me, I'm in my 40s. A lot of us are late mothers. We started motherhood in our late 30s, 40s. Yeah. And so we don't have time to go to the gym. Do you think that's just excuses?
So here's the thing. Yeah, I had my kids in my early 30s, but then I was a single mom. Mm-hmm. I ran 2 companies by myself. I was the sole provider. And one of my sons was in a near fatal accident and literally in the hospital for months. And then, we were rehabbing at home for years. And when people tell me they don't have time, I say make time.
That is inspiring.
Because here's the thing. You actually, so often the reason we say we can't do something or why not actually needs to be your why, right? The reason you say I can't do that, that's why you have to do it.
Yeah.
And unless you want to have kids who are sedentary and set up for the statistics of 1 in 5 children being obese, then your kids are going to do what you do, not what you tell them to do. So you want your kids to be active and get that instilled in them at a young age and eat healthy and get that instilled in them at a young age. So you kind of don't have a choice.
I was going to ask you about that actually, about your son going into a coma because of an accident. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how you rehabilitated him?
So right before my first big book was coming out, literally the month before its launch, my son was hit by a car and left for dead in the street. And when we got to the hospital, he had
hit and run.
A hit and run. Yeah, hit and run by a woman. I don't know why. I just don't expect women to do that.
It's a motherly instinct, right?
But he had 13 fractures, a torn aorta, and multiple brain bleeds. And the type of injury he had, they couldn't do the surgery at the hospital we were at in Palm Springs, California. And they said he won't survive an airlift where he needs to go, which was Los Angeles, which was like a 45-minute helicopter ride. And they go, and even if he were to survive this airlift, he's not going to survive this surgery that he needs to have. And even if he were to survive that, both of those things, he would be so brain damaged it wouldn't be worth it. Now, here's the thing. he was in Palm Springs, California, where the average age is about 70. At that trauma center, that's entirely true. But for a 16-year-old, like my 16-year-old, who's super stubborn and fighter, not true. So we overruled the doctor and we airlifted him to the next hospital. And they saved us. They had 5 surgical teams work through the night on him, saved his life.
How did you stay hopeful through that?
I had a mentor at 30 who's a mindset coach who taught me that thoughts create, that you create your reality. And so I never entertained any thought beyond he's going to be 110%. I would not let anything else into my head, because when you believe thoughts create, then if you believe that he's not going to make it, he's not going to make it. So I just was like,
a lot of people struggle with that, with being able to filter out thoughts they don't want, especially because now we have so little control over what's being fed.
Oh no, we do have absolute control over what's being fed to us.
Ooh, tell me more.
Well, someone's choosing to watch this or not. They're choosing to scroll on Instagram. They're choosing their friends. They're choosing. That was what I learned at 30, was that you need to tightly control your environment, because, whatever's coming in, right, is going to create your reality. Right?
Yeah.
So you do have total control of that.
You have to curate your world.
You curate who you spend time with. You curate what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, and you don't hang with that. So, like, I didn't even tell my mother what had happened for 24 hours, because my mother is absolutely one of those people who's like, well, a doom and gloom. And so I was like, I'm not going to. And I barely spoke to her for months, because, I was like, I'll give you a report each day, but I didn't want to hear all this negative.
So what you did was give yourself somebody who you knew would be able to keep you uplifted.
Yeah, I surrounded myself with friends who are absolutely like I am, but that's who I spend time with. I don't spend time with negative Nellies.
Yeah.
Right? I just want
to do it. We think that we can just.
But what a thing to do to raise your kids with, because my other son, who's 15 at the time, looked at the doctor when the doctor gave him all that doom and gloom negativity. He goes, so it sounds like there's a 0.0125% chance he'll make it. And the doctor's like, yes, that's, doom and gloom. And he goes, that's not 0. We'll take those odds. And so he was trained just to think that way, right?
Yeah. You raised him to think that way.
Well, I didn't even have to teach him to think that way, because that's what he was around. Like, just like you don't have to teach your kids to eat healthy to eat healthy. You don't have to teach them to exercise if you're exercising.
They're always watching.
That's what they do. I remember I had a client who was a smoker, and I said, do you want your kids to smoke? Oh, no. I go, well, what do you think they're going to do? You gave them permission. Like, come on.
Exactly. I think we don't really think about that. So how should we see midlife so that we can actually start to get excited about it, start to get excited about the painful things? Because exercising and being disciplined in our self-care is not going to be easy for us if our whole lives, we've been raised to care for others.
Yeah, which is a big boo-boo. I had this one client who came to me, and she came to me because she was a primary financial support for her family. And she'd had like a heart attack or something, ended up in the hospital, freaked out about this, and said, okay, now I'm ready to do something. I'm like,
yes,
all right, well, let's go.
We wait till everything crashes.
So now we sit down and outline this plan. And I tell her, you need to check in every day. And I don't hear from her. And I don't hear from her, and I don't hear from her, and I don't hear from her. 2 weeks later, I hear from her, and I go, where have you been?
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, I had to go, and I had all these things I needed to do first.
For other people.
I had to find out my life insurance policy. I go, wait a minute. So you'd rather plan to die than plan to live? Like, it's like.
Well, the irony of that.
Right? I know.
Really?
So you look at all this stuff and go, all of that stuff, this whole idea that, we're being selfish if we do that. I think we're being selfish if we're not, because if you can't be there for your family, right? So you just, discipline and consistency are what's going to get you there. You can start small. Like what I would have someone do if they were starting right now is I would say, let's just pick one thing. Maybe we're going to start tracking your steps every day. And every day we just go, you are going to, wherever you are, you increase them over time till you get to 8 to 12,000 a day. And once you have that one dialed, cool. Now let's add a little intensity a couple times a week, maybe put on a weighted vest. Okay. Now you have that, cool. Let's make sure you're eating enough protein and use a tracking device like a chronometer app, which is free to do that. Got that one in, 1 gram per, or it's actually, for you guys, are kilograms. Yeah. Oh, now I have to do math. It's a 0.5 gram per kilogram body weight. I know it's 1 gram per pound of body weight. So what is that? That's 2 grams per kilogram. I think 2 grams per kilogram. I went the opposite. So you're doing the right amount of protein. Got that? Okay, let's start to focus on your sleep. And you just one by one do this so that over time, you're always, it's called CANI, constant and never ending improvement.
Constant and never ending improvement. So you chunk size it almost.
You just do a thing at a time.
Yeah.
Habit stack.
Yeah. You know? And so I think for many women, it is that aspect of if they can just get over seeing themselves as selfish for putting their needs first. But I was just talking to Dr. Mindy, who says, actually, as we start to get older, we start to become more self-confident and we start to become more assertive. So hopefully that kicks in for all of us at this age.
Well, it can if you decide to.
Yeah, right? That's the thing. I think we really need to know that it has to come from us. At some point, we have to be the
thing. There's no night coming. No one's coming to save us.
I found out too late.
I know. We all waited for it. We're all like, where is he? He's not coming.
I still have that voice somewhere telling me.
We all did. I'm like, where is he? And I remember hearing my mom's ear, it's just as easy to marry a rich guy. I'm like, well, you didn't marry a rich guy.
Yeah. And how many do and then end up?
Yeah, I was like, I married the opposite. My first husband. Well, I completely flubbed that one. I married the guy who doesn't want to work.
So you had to be the dependent for your children. Yeah. There's so much to talk about, but everyone wants to know how we can have this body.
So it's consistency over time.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
And
see it as a lifestyle.
Yeah, it just becomes, but again, there's really cool research that's come out and shown that, if you think you can go to the gym 3 times a week for 30 minutes to an hour and then sit on your butt the rest of the time, it's like erasing, erasing it. So that's why we start.
It worse, I find, because if I do let's say strength training or something like that for all day and then the whole day I'm at the computer, I actually wake up with sciatica and different types of pains.
So there's interesting stuff right now about exercise dosing. Now, or they're called exercise snacks. The minute I started talking about that, someone goes, we get to eat while we work out. I go, no. So I'm calling it doses to avoid that. But I think that, again, first, let's just move. When you look at metabolism, 3 things dictate metabolism, right? Your resting metabolic rate. So if you just were on a couch all day, it would be really the biggest way you change that is how much muscle mass you have. Okay. And then your thermic effect of food. The biggest way you change that is by eating more protein. It's the most thermic of the macronutrients. The third one is activity. And within the activity umbrella is non-exercise, just how much you move around, and then exercise. And so most people are moving around 25 to 4,000 steps a day. They're not even close to where they need to be. So that's why I start there. And then we start adding in resistance training. And the big important thing with women that I still can't believe in this day and age is out there is that I'll tell women, okay, then we're going to go into the gym and start to really lift heavy. And you're like, I don't want to get big.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to get big.
I don't want to look like a man.
I don't
want to
look like a man. Here's what's interesting. 40 years I've been doing this. I've never had a woman get big lifting weights. I've had women get big because they're not lifting weights.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
Like what's making you get big? It's sitting on your butt and eating carbs.
So no matter how heavy we lift, there's no way to look like Mr. Olympia.
Well, here's the thing. They all take steroids, number 1. Right? And if you don't like what you're starting to look like, it is gaining muscle is a major struggle. 1 to 2 pounds of muscle a month is about what you can do. So
if you're lifting heavy.
If you're
not, you're losing.
You're losing. So if all of a sudden you went, oh, I don't like the way my muscles are looking, you stop. It's that simple. Like,
I've never had that problem because it's so hard to
I've
build.
never had anyone say that to me. But the interesting thing too is if you really wanted to get strong and not muscular, which is no one, right? Because they all say, I want to get toned. I don't want to get big. I want to get toned. I go, this is heavy. It's
to look this ripped, you actually have to lift very heavy.
But I don't. If you want to build muscle, it actually is doing somewhere between 6 and 30 repetitions, multiple sets. It's more kind of a muscular endurance thing. If you want to get strong, it's actually 1 to 5 repetitions, multiple sets. You won't get as big.
Okay.
You actually don't really build as much muscle as you build strength, which is it seems opposite. It seems if you did really, really, really heavy, it would get you big. But it's actually if you lift more in this like range where you do multiple sets.
I didn't know that because I think I used to do the Tracy Anderson workout method. I don't know if you know her.
I know her.
Yeah. Okay, so she used to say don't lift heavy at all because then you'll fall off.
That's actually completely wrong.
Yeah.
So
I think that's why I got that because I like to lift heavy because I think I feel stronger. But every time she would say that, I would.
Well, let's. I mean, this is all just exercise physiology stuff. So, in the short range, remember lifting to get strong. That's the heaviest weight you can handle one time. If your whole goal was just to get strong, you would lift in 1 to 5 reps, and you would take about 3 to 5 minutes of break, and you do about 5 sets.
Lift to exhaustion.
It's close. We call it maybe 1 rep in reserve. So if you lifted 3 times, you maybe could eke out another one. If you want to build muscle and tone and really start to look defined, it actually is more in the 6 to 30 reps. I tell people to do like 8 to 15. About 90 seconds break, do it again, 90 seconds break, do it again. And you want to get to a point where you have 1 or 2 left in the tank. So let's say you were doing push-ups. You'd feel like maybe you could do another 1 or 2, and then your form, I would say forms when you stop. If your form goes down, you stop.
Oh, really?
Yeah, technique is
so don't push through if you can't hold that
If your form's going, that's when you get hurt. Oh. And what I really like, people are afraid they're going to get hurt at the gym. People get hurt in life. I tell people, train at the gym so that you can go out in the wild and not get hurt. Yeah. The place you'll get hurt at the gym is if you're doing dumb things like you're pushing in bad form. That's where you'll hurt.
Another question we get is bones. That our bones get weaker. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how we can resist that?
Yeah, by resistance training. That was such a good one. Thank you. So here's the thing. Bone density, bone mineral density is actually a lagging indicator of not having enough muscle. If you are doing resistance training and specifically doing more of the power training, jump training, squats, overhead presses, things that are loading your hips and your spine, then you're not going to have the issue with bone mineral density. If you're not doing that, that's where you have the challenge. Like if all you're doing is say walking or swimming,
just lots of cardio,
heavy stuff that loads your spine, loads your hips. So that's where a rucking vest can be great too. However, just like you can't build muscle 30 plus without optimal protein, you can't build bones without also the right vitamin D, like vitamin D with K, good minerals, especially magnesium. Calcium's important, magnesium's important too. And then estrogen and progesterone.
Right.
Just like we need
That's
estrogen
another question I was going to ask you.
For muscle, we need estrogen and progesterone for bone.
Also, is that for hormone replacement?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you would say to women they should get tests done to replace the hormones.
So the running narrative now, especially in the States, thankfully now that the Women's Health Initiative that so many people's it's been so debunked, is that the minute things start to go sideways, like you start to have a shortened or lengthened period, you start to have any kind of symptoms, that's when you go work with a menopause doctor. And this really is a doctor who's had advanced training in menopause, because they can be a functional doc or a gynecologist and not have that piece, which is bizarre, but that's when you start to replace. And that's when I did. Right.
I haven't had it yet, but I was talking to Dr. Mindy, but I'm feeling just crazy. And I know that it is because I'm.
So you can go, because you can start to go look at your LH, and they can start to look at your FSH and LH and see what else is going on. So that's where you work with a good functional menopause doc.
Yeah. Do you find once you came through menopause, that there was a different sense of self that emerged. And what do you speak on that?
First of all, it's so much easier because when you're starting to go through menopause and you're doing hormones, it's like trying to balance on a paddleboard on the, it's going to be rocky, and you have to be really aware of connecting the dots of your symptoms. And that's where you make sure you've got stuff for your stress and your sleep. Like you're really managing everything because you have no margin for error. So your eating's dialed, your stress, especially everything related to your adrenal glands, because as you go through menopause, you start to produce estrogen through your adrenal glands. If not, you'll produce it through belly fat. That's what you don't want, right? So you really want to get all those things dialed in and then you use hormone replacement therapy as you're going through. Once you're through, then it's stable. Then you know exactly the dosing, because otherwise you're like moderating, right? Now you've got the dosing. It's like the greatest ever. You're not having like, cycling here. It's great. Yeah. It's awesome. It's the best. You don't have any like that horrible anxiety and depression and fluid retention, like all over,
just
all done.
Clarity, really.
It's
you
fabulous.
Come through, like coming
like
through the
so
fog.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep.
And what do you say to people who are feeling like a loss in self-confidence from, being a mom, wives, divorce, all of the life stuff that you deal with?
Get strong, because it's going to get you really confident. The work creates the worst, really. Like, think about that. So if all of a sudden, and you're going to start going in and start doing these things, and at first you're going to feel like, I don't know what I'm doing, etc. If you can work with a trainer or go into a class or do something so you can get some instruction, but the more you do that work and the stronger you get, the better your self-worth will be.
Yeah. Talk to us about your diet that you recommend.
So I teach people to eat protein first.
Yeah.
Now, anything I do, I like to focus on what's going to make the biggest difference. So the first thing that I have someone do is go get a body composition test so they know what their weight is made up of. Women have got to get out of this whole weight loss idea and start to look at, I need to hold on to or build muscle while I'm losing body fat, which is totally possible to do when you optimize protein. But if you don't know what your weight's made up of, you won't understand. Like, case in point, my husband dropped 27 pounds of fat in 8 months and put on 24 pounds of muscle, a 3-pound change. It looked like I lost 3 pounds. No, he dropped down 2 waist sizes. He's ripped. He looks like an entirely different person. I had a client do that where over the course of the year, she came in, she wanted to lose 10 pounds. I'm looking at her, she doesn't weight-wise, she didn't need to lose weight. She needed to drop fat and put on muscle.
Yeah.
And over the course of the year, we worked, she dropped 10 pounds of fat and put on 10 pounds of muscle, went from 25% body fat to 18% body fat, dropped 2 clothing sizes. Unbelievable change. She's frustrated because she didn't lose 10 pounds. I'm like, I don't know what to do.
They're hung up on the,
because they're hung up, and that's what we have to get off of.
Yeah.
And really know that you got to know what your weight's made up of. Then you want to eat your protein based on what your target body weight is. So again, in kilograms, basically, it would be 2 grams per kilogram of target body weight.
Okay.
And, I say it's a minimum of 100 grams a day, a minimum of 30 to 40 grams per meal. And that's why I have people track and use a food scale so they know what they actually ate, because we don't do good with that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if they're using, it doesn't matter which diet, whether it's animal or whether it's vegetable.
Yeah, it's harder with vegan.
Yeah.
You can do it. I usually will supplement with essential amino acids and protein powders, because otherwise they're going to overload their carbs and fat. So, but when you're using a food scale and a food tracking app, you'll see it.
Is it easier with animal?
Way easier.
Yeah.
Because think of it, 6 cups of quinoa to get the protein you'd get in a chicken breast. 800 calories, 200 calories.
Yeah.
So if you are someone who's eating maybe, and this isn't even going into caloric restriction yet, but let's say you need 200 calories a day, it's really challenging. You have to be a really good food chemist to do it. Now you can use protein powders and essential aminos, but
yeah. And do you think, I mean, obviously we're not going to tell women what to eat, but what can they do to kickstart their metabolism? Is it first a fact that our metabolism slows down in midlife?
Here's what's interesting. It does and it doesn't. The biggest hit tends to be starting around 60, but it's really not that big of a deal. The what's been shown is potentially we drop about 200 calories a day when our estrogen drops. So if you're hormone replacing, it doesn't happen. And then as you're losing muscle mass, that resting metabolic rate goes down. Remember, 3 ways that you can change your metabolism. Resting metabolic rate. So if estrogen's dialed, then you want it to drop. If thyroid's dialed, then you'll be okay, right?
Yeah.
And if you're improving your muscle, because someone with more muscle burns more calorie at rest. So that's how you dictate your resting metabolic rate. So it does not have to go down if you're doing those things. Then food, if all you did was take some of the calories and carbs and fat and move them over to protein, you would increase the thermic effect of the food part of the metabolism, because 20 to 30% of the calories in protein are expended just in the assimilation and metabolism of protein. Nothing happens when you eat fat. All of that's on your body, right? Or used for fuel. And carbs, it's about 5 to 10%. So if you took some of the calories from fat and carbs, put them over to protein, you'd have a little metabolic bump from that. Then if you're looking and moving more throughout the day, like let's say you're getting 4,000 steps in and we take you to 8 to 12, like that's a couple hundred calories right there. Then we started to add resistance training that has a big metabolic cost. When you do resistance training, your body, after the fact, has all this work to do. It has to do muscle protein synthesis. It has to use essential aminos from protein, and then the resistance training damage and repair during sleep. So all of a sudden, you've got more metabolism. So that's how you do it. And then you'll have a higher metabolic rate at rest, right? So that you can eat more. If you try to fight it by getting smaller and eating less and doing less, you actually just slow yourself way down and get yourself into a real metabolic hole.
Just drive yourself crazy, right? Yeah, so that the women who calorie count and are able to stay skinny and probably have high fat.
Or, I was just going to say skinny
fat.
Skinny fat.
Skinny fat. What are the dangers in thinking that, just being obsessed with size rather than thinking of strength and muscle mass?
Well, over the age of 65, a third of women will, like, if you look at it, if you break your hip, and after 65, a third of the people who break their hip, and they're women, will die within a year. So, there's that one. There's the stats that it's like 3 to 11% of 50 to 60-year-olds are sarcopenic. That means low muscle mass, frail. Frailty is a huge risk factor. Grip strength. 2 million people looked at. Grip strength was people had the lowest grip strength, so women can't open a jar, have the highest all-cause mortality. So someone who has been maintaining their weight, by diet alone, and in fact, there was a guy in London who did the research on MRIs years ago, where he found that the people who were normal weight but were maintaining their weight by diet alone, 50% of them were thin outside, fat inside, were skinny fats. And so that is why you must know what your weight is made up of. You must fight for muscle like you're fighting for your life, because you are. Like, muscle is everything. It's your immune system. It's your endocrine system. Keeps your bones healthy. It keeps your metabolism up. It's how you stay insulin sensitive. It is the biggest thing that you can do. So someone who's just trying to be small is setting themselves up for, well, like, they're going to be that person in their 60s, 70s, 80s who's going to be frail, who's going to be in a wheelchair, who's going to need help, and when they fall,
can we grow our bones at any age?
So really, you grow your bones in your teens. I mean, really, in the perfect world, we'd be doing bone density testing in your teens, because your teens and 20s is when that time is. Can you improve it a little
How can
bit?
you grow that in your teens? It's just through exercise?
It's optimal vitamin D. It's good fish oil. It's doing hard resistance training, and it's making sure you're not overly acidic and dieting. Like, that's when a time when a lot of girls become anorexic. That's when you really hurt your bones. It's making sure that you have normal periods, because that's what you need for this. So, but now you want to do everything possible that you can to also not just support your bones, but if you support your power and your agility, then if you do get in a situation where you have to quickly move or adjust, or you step wrong off a step, you won't fall and break your hip.
Right.
And you have at least the muscle to protect you too.
Yeah. I've just remembered about fish oil.
Yeah.
That I just read that you used fish oil to rehabilitate.
Yes, to rehabilitate my son for his brain inflammation, because 70% fat in the brain, high DHA. But for us, fish oil is anabolic, can help you with building muscle. It reduces inflammation. That might be part of the mechanism because that helps with muscle protein synthesis and it can help with bone remodeling. So I think all of us should do something called an omega quant test that looks at your omega-3 index to make sure you're getting the right amount of omega-3s, because we tend to eat a very pro-inflammatory diet unless we're aware.
Yeah. And all of this is in your book?
My book is not out yet. It's a year and a couple months away, but I have a program.
It will all be in the book.
Yeah, this is all in the book. I've been doing a lot of my YouTube channel now is dedicated to this, but I have a program coming out in the fall. It's the program for the book. I always do that first so I can collect all the case studies of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So where can people sign up for your program?
jjvirgin.com.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming on.